Hello, I'm Simon Whistler. You're watching TopTenzNet, and in the video today, the top 10 amazing practical effects you thought were CGI. One of the most important aspects of filmmaking is keeping the audience immersed in the world that's being shown. Whether the characters are in a fantasy world or jumping out of a moving car, the audience's willingness to go along with the story is, in large part, due to the viewer's willingness to suspend their disbelief. The goal of a filmmaker is to keep the audience so entranced that it's only afterward that they begin to question or wonder how some of the amazing feats were accomplished. And because of the advancements in CGI, many audience members simply write off the incredible as ordinary. Many believe that the stunts are simply CGI, when in fact some of the most powerful scenes in recent memory have been real, practical, and extremely dangerous stunts. Number 10. The Dark Knight. Christopher Nolan is something of a realist. One of the best directors of his generation, he has resisted the switch to digital and has continued to shoot on film, so it's not surprising that he'd do everything in his power to make CGI as limited as possible in his blockbuster movies. A daring filmmaker who continues to tell stories in a unique narrative style and voice, Nolan was at the helm of the revitalization of the Batman franchise. In one of the most iconic scenes from The Dark Knight, Batman attempts to save Harvey Dent from the Joker, who is determined to blow up a police escort. In the well-known tunnel sequence, the Batmobile rams into a garbage truck. The scene left many scratching their heads, marveling about the realism of the CGI. But the truth is, it was real. Every single bit of it. Nolan and his team constructed a 1/3 scale model of the Batmobile as well as the truck and that particular section of Chicago's Lower Wacker Drive. Nolan's stunt team placed both models on a guide and then smashed them into each other to create the scene. The same strategy was used for the semi-trailer truck that flips on its head. All in all, the plan was executed brilliantly, and the viewer is left marveling at the world that they created. Number 9. The Dark Knight Rises. Christopher Nolan was at it again in the final installment of his Batman trilogy. According to Nolan, one of his proudest moments was executing the opening scene where Bane escapes from the CIA plane mid-flight. It's an exhilarating sequence that, again, did not use CGI. The scene was filmed in Scotland over the Cairngorm Mountains of the Scottish Highlands. It's the highest mountain range in the UK, and is described as incredibly cold with incessant winds and an unforgiving climate. The CIA plane used in the film was a Lockheed C-130 Hercules commissioned by the US military. It was a perfect fit for the stunt, with a stall speed as low as 111 miles an hour. Nolan and his camera crew were able to follow the plane in a helicopter, recording the exterior action. The particulars are so difficult to describe in detail that when Nolan was asked about the stunt, he said, "It was sort of an incredible coming together of lots and lots of planning by lots of members of the team who worked for months rehearsing all these parachute jumps." The action inside the plane was much more straightforward, and it was accomplished by building a simulator where Nolan could rotate, shake, and twist the fuselage, making the actors almost weightless inside the device. Put together, Nolan was able to add another jaw-dropping scene to his filmography. Number 8. Star Wars: The Force Awakens. One of the most anticipated films in recent memory, Star Wars: The Force Awakens made sure to capitalize off the hype, introducing several real props, creatures, and locations. Probably the most notable prop was the droid BB-8. J.J. Abrams and crew made sure they had a BB-8 for whatever sequence they were filming. They constructed a BB-8 that could show emotion when held by actors, a BB-8 that could be thrown around and stay upright, a BB-8 controlled by rod puppeteers, and even a fully functioning droid that could roll around like a possessed bowling ball. Abrams and crew didn't phone it in with CGI when they probably could have either. Don't get us wrong, there's obviously a ton of CGI in a movie featuring literal space battles, but even small effects like Rey's food materializing was real. A sequence that was on screen for seconds took more than 3 months to develop and execute. And while it may not seem worth it, the smallest things can take a viewer out of a world, and The Force Awakens did a great job of refusing to allow the audience to fall astray. Number 7. Apollo 13. One of the best films depicting NASA astronauts is Ron Howard's Apollo 13. Starring Tom Hanks, Kevin Bacon, and Bill Paxton, the film depicts the aborted 1970 lunar mission, which became a mission of survival. Instead of using CGI, Howard wanted to create an atmosphere or experience that allowed viewers to truly appreciate the fear and unease that the astronauts experienced. Howard utilized NASA's Vomit Comet KC-135 airplane designed for one purpose: creating a zero-G environment on Earth. In order to accomplish such a feat, the KC-135 does a series of parabolic arcs at very fast speeds. This results in a window of weightlessness for the passengers on the plane. According to reports, it took more than 600 arcs for Howard to get the takes that he liked. It's now clear that he knew what he was doing. The movie was nominated for 9 Academy Awards and grossed more than $355 million worldwide. Number 6. Skyfall. Good filmmakers certainly know how to catch an audience's attention. The opening scene from Skyfall is no different. Every punch and kick thrown in the scene is actually performed by Daniel Craig and his counterpart on top of a speeding train. The only thing keeping them from falling is a wire that's as thin as a single finger. Now, this is not so surprising, as Bond films are notorious for real stunts that absolutely push the boundaries. In Spectre, the follow-up installment in the Bond franchise, filmmakers set a Guinness record for stunts in a single production. So next time you're watching a Bond film, make sure you take a second to appreciate the risks that some of the men and women are taking for our entertainment. Number 5. Mad Max Fury Road. This is one of the most unique examples on our list because of its utilization of both CGI and real stunts to make compelling scenes. In that iconic scene where Tom Hardy is dangling perilously close to the ground, that's all completely real. All that was keeping Hardy from being roadkill was a very thin cable. The sequence in question was also filmed while Hardy's son was on set. Director George Miller, when asked what would happen if the cable snapped, remarked, "It'd probably go under the wheels." Miller is known for pushing the limits of ordinary filming practices. He hired Cirque du Soleil performers to rock around on Chinese acrobat poles while a camera rig weaved around them at up to 100 miles per hour. If that wasn't enough, the film's production also saw the invention of a new way to flip a car, a nitrogen-powered metallic blade that was designed to pop down on the car, forcing it to make those ridiculous flips in the movie. Certainly not bad for the director who previously did Happy Feet and Babe, Pig in the City. Number 4. Mission Impossible. Pretty much the whole film franchise. Tom Cruise is notorious for doing most of his own stunts in his films. Shooting the upcoming installment in the Mission Impossible series, Cruise even broke his ankle trying to jump to an adjacent rooftop. This wasn't the first time Cruise has put himself into harm's way, though. In the original, he dangled from a ceiling. In the sequel, he hung off the side of a cliff. In Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, he scaled the side of the Burj Khalifa. And then in Mission Impossible Rogue Nation, he really did cling to the side of a flying plane. Each of these stunts was performed by Cruise without the use of a stuntman. In Rogue Nation, Cruise only had wires attached to the side of his body as he gripped the side of that plane. And we suppose that's really why they pay him the big bucks. Number 3. The Amazing Spider-Man. One of the unique bits of the Spider-Man reboot was director Mark Webb's decision to make the web-slinging aspects of the film real. In past Spider-Man movies, the web-slinging part was almost all CGI, and it became apparent that these scenes were taking viewers out of the movie. Instead, The Amazing Spider-Man and its sequel relied mostly on stuntmen and Andrew Garfield himself, who was willing to participate in the action. Stunt coordinator Andy Armstrong described in an interview the difficult process of executing such a stunt. Through his research, he found that the difficulty in the execution was based, in part, on the past versions of Spider-Man depicting his downward swing as the same as his upward motion. Armstrong and his team constructed a track being pulled by a high-speed winch to help emulate Spidey's web-slinging ways. He'd go on to describe it as a cracking whip. A stuntman would drop into the bottom of the pendulum, and as he reached the bottom of his arc, someone driving the winch would pull a dolly along to the next spot. With a little digital effects to boot, the Amazing Spider-Man films created a whole new way of looking at one of our favorite superheroes. Number 2. The Matrix Reloaded. Don't jump down our throats on this one. We know The Matrix Reloaded relied on a heavy amount of CGI. However, it would surprise most viewers to know just how much of the action sequences really were real stunts. One of the most memorable sequences in the entire trilogy, the agents chasing Morpheus and Trinity on the highway, was no exception. Although the agent scene jumping from the hood of a vehicle was added in post-production, the chain reaction of car crashes and the actual implosion of the car was absolutely real. The Wachowskis managed to oversee the use of special rigs, cannons, and ramps to create the massively destructive sequence. The use of real effects like this is one of the many reasons that the Matrix trilogy has so far stood the test of time. Number 1. Inception. Alright, so we really couldn't end this video without another Christopher Nolan movie. Probably the most memorable scene in Inception was Leonardo DiCaprio and Ellen Page's character's conversation at a coffee shop in Paris. Suddenly, an explosion sends debris and broken glass into the air. All the while, DiCaprio and Page remain in the center of the storm. The sequence was executed by production designer Chris Corballs, shooting a series of air cannons, while director of photography Wally Pfister shot at 1,500 frames per second. It made for one of the most memorable parts of the movie, introducing the audience to the idea of Inception. Not to be outdone, later in the film, there's a fight scene featuring Joseph Gordon-Levitt in a hotel room and in a hallway. In this scene, the room continues to rotate, allowing the combatants to run up the walls and on the ceiling. As you've probably guessed by now, that was all done entirely with practical sets and real stunts. So I really hope you enjoyed that video, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel for brand new videos every day of the week. Also, I've got another channel, it's called Biographics. It's biographies of notable people from the present day as well as history, from Elon Musk to Osama bin Laden. You can check it out through the icon on the screen now. But if you want something else to watch right now, why not check out another TopTenz video or a Biographics video over there on the right. And as always, thank you for watching.